Hello everyone. Today we are together with Jean-Marc Flamme. We will start with his slides. Okay, Jean-Marc Flamme, please start.
Hi there, everyone, and in Turkey and around the world here live on YouTube. Thanks for having me today to talk about smart cities. And yeah, I'd love to introduce to you the concept of what smart cities is according to part of the world, as well as in Canada where I live. I do smart cities design. I also work with a variety of organizations, including the Intelligent Community Forum. And we'll just go right into it. Okay, next slide.
Yep.
Yeah, so who am I? I'm, 20 years developing technology for communities. That's now called Smart Cities. I help start civic technology teams for community engagement and economic development. I help found co-working spaces, innovation centers, and entrepreneurship programs. And help build the first successful equity crowdfunding platform in North America. If anybody knows what that is, very crazy about electric vehicles, including bikes, boats, and my Tesla.
Well,
Super. Yeah, so just a quick intro on what smart cities are. Smart is about applying technology to automate cities, connect everything with data management and AI, leading to affordable and regenerative communities. That's a pretty loaded statement, but we'll try and unpack what that means. But bottom line, cities of any size are not just collections of technology. The life inside these cities are human and natural first. So we need to co-design together with local people and the environment. So we call it intelligent communities. It's, engaging local schools, entrepreneurs, and citizens as partners in planning and carrying out these innovation projects. So we engage offline in events, but also online at the same time. And we take time to try to drive this in a positive way, increasing everyone's commitment to building community. What I call it is futurescaping. We work with community members to generate a return on an investment that is much greater than any technology project. So the first phase of all this, as you've come to see, is moving information faster with the internet and now fiber internet, of course. Great speed with almost gigabit if you're in the right place at the right time. Quality. It's important to move information. Throughout history, we've moved people around, and now we're moving them faster, of course, with transportation technology, and also money. Moving these three things will really be the foundation of an intelligent community. Moving money traditionally through banking systems and now digital currencies, the smooth flow of information, people with electric vehicles, and money will really be the foundation of an intelligent community. So, of course, you get into very successful cities, and in Istanbul, you see you've got a very successful city there, and many other cities around the world who've attracted a lot of people, and it creates a lot of issues within that city of handling all those people, the waste, the economy, the infrastructure. Of course, the real estate prices. The real estate prices go skyward, and young people can't necessarily afford to buy a place or even rent. And as I mentioned, a lot of governments are imploding or not dealing with situations well. Of course, through the COVID crisis, we see that now more than ever. So citizens are coming together in old formats. They come together in groups and committees or on social media with very little organization. So that's what you're seeing right now in our crisis. Just floods of people really complaining about how the emergency is being handled. Of course, most importantly, we've got a climate crisis, and at this point, as you know, with the COVID crisis, very few people are paying attention to the climate crisis, which is a bigger issue. And next slide. Yeah, in North America here, what we're seeing is young people leaving the big cities. Now, it's different in Turkey. I think most people are still going into the big cities. But in North America, for almost a decade, we've seen young people leaving the big cities because they can't afford it. They also want a different life. So digital nomads is what they're called. They're technology connected young people that are coming out into the rural country around North America for more affordable living. And now that that rural country is being connected with internet and actually fiber internet, and then they're able to kind of live and work. Yeah. So most importantly, we have to be excited because this is the greatest time in human history where you in Turkey, young people all over the world can kind of come together and create their own future. We've been saying this forever, but it's been very difficult because the system is held on very strongly. And now it's coming apart. And I'll be using this term called decentralization a lot in this presentation, talking about how everyone can now be an innovator, and now that they're connected to all the programs you've ever wanted, so you can build your own community. And, yeah. So what most importantly, everybody has to realize that young people and older adults and entrepreneurs and innovators all need to work together. People of all ages have a different skill set, not just older adults with all the experience. Here you can see all of these things that become the peak period in your life where you're learning a language or memorizing or running or discovering Nobel Peace Prize. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see what older adults can contribute with understanding emotion, anticipating change, acknowledging uncertainty, and actually speaking properly. So we need to come together at all ages to co-create our cities with the knowledge that we have together. Okay. So one of the coolest things that we're doing these days are hackathons, and maybe you've been part of one. They used to be just for coders and technology, and here's Elon Musk. He's doing a hackathon for artificial intelligence. But we do it for civic engagement, and we do it with youth around the world. And we come together. If you go to the next slide. Yeah. Yeah, and so we do hacking or growth hacking. So we hope that our communities can be run like a business. Businesses have come together for a long time using data and software to manage better. But now we have to get our cities to be run like a better business because it's your business. You can't just let the government do what they do. So we use these hackathons, and we call them civic hackathons, and we focus on some of the most pressing problems like housing, food, transportation, the economy, resources, and culture. They're events that get people together and create really unique activities across generations for young and old, and unlocks their potential, their solutions, their creative input. And then we take all of that offline engagement and we move it to civic engagement platforms online so that people can have that ongoing discussion. A good platform is PlaySpeak. You should check that out. But also we're creating experimental zones, just like developers create an experimental zone with their digital products, and you develop in a zone. We need to do this offline with their cities. One of the coolest things that you in Turkey and myself over in Canada do is we get together in festivals and events and really great creative interactions that unlocks and allows you to shift your mindset.
Okay.
Super. And so the crazy thing, of course, you always face is that there's sometimes a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and you're trying to make something, and people are angry, and all sorts of chaos happens. But ultimately, we're trying to refine the recipe. This is always one big experiment. You can go to the next slide. So we're looking at ways in which we could participate better, how to collaborate and innovate. The old system was around tables inside of the government buildings. Young and innovative people, the young people would stay away from the politics. Nobody wants to touch that. And oftentimes, as you see in social media, people complain and they complain and complain and complain about why their ideas are not coming out. The new system is solution-based on civic engagement platforms and workshops and hackathons with global solutions plugged into it across different generations. And then we reach a consensus by voting on solutions in real time. Go to the next one. So this is kind of our experiments with smart villages. So there's small clusters of experiments that are happening around the world, and we'll talk a bit about them. And then the next slide. We have 10 years. We have 10 years to execute on these radical solutions because of the climate emergency. Also, most importantly, next to the climate emergency is artificial intelligence, which is doing most of the human jobs of today that we slave over, and it's going to inject at least $30 trillion into the economy. So these are two really big things that are happening over the next 10 years that we need to face. And the only way to do that is to come together in better format offline and then re-engage online. And next slide. Yeah, so here's a great way. Have you ever heard of Burning Man, this large festival in the United States where they create a whole city over the course of a week with 50,000 people coming together. It has everything you need in a city, and it really just comes together very quickly. And around the world, here on the other side is a small festival that we have in my small town, and again, it's a city that's been transformed with art and creative over the course of a weekend, where transformation can happen very quickly. Creatives can come together and apply their understanding of what the world was and what it could be, and it's an experiment that comes together year after year. So smart villages, in my context, we are focused on smart living, so affordable housing, food technology, transportation systems. We need to what I call crush the cost of living so that you can almost live for free and you can take on these challenges like climate crisis and AI, because right now you're too busy studying or working a job. And all these things are programs from yesteryear. So how do we get the time? We need to make affordable living happening. And that'll unlock smart people with, as you know, a lot of education is free online. And we need to create sustainable businesses, learning to unlearn from the past. So how to reprogram yourself and be prepared for this increasingly fast technology and change. Future Thinkers is a good podcast to check out if you're interested in this. So open government, if you haven't heard of that, is the process of kind of opening up government with civic engagement platforms at first. And we do independent multimedia packages to showcase these issues and solutions so that you can creatively understand what it is through visualization. And then, of course, focusing on some free transportation solutions. This is one that I'm involved with here on my local level. Electric shared vehicles. Nobody is going to own vehicles in the future. They're all just going to be shared. That's around smart mobility structures. And next slide. Yeah, and then so it is one big collaborative experiment. So how can we have multiple communities working together in Turkey or across the world and working together on certain projects? You may want to pick one particular thing, whether it's smart transportation or affordable housing, and work with other communities to challenge each other And that's what we should be doing around the world. How do we create new solutions, crowdsource them with open data using a web platform. You can either retrofit your community quickly, or transform it slowly, or build a new one. And so, what are those performance metrics? And I'll talk a little bit about Sidewalk Labs and the Toyota City, some really fantastic smart cities that are working in a collaborative fashion with people from around the world. Okay, next slide. So that's all. That's it for now for the presentation. I'll move to the questions because I know there's a lot of good ones out there, and we'll talk about what it takes to make a smart turkey. The most important phrase that I use all the time: there are no adults. Everyone's making it up as they go along. So let's figure it out and do it.
Yes, thank you for your good presentation. Actually, we are really happy to have you as IEEE Backend student branch. Now we learned that what is smart cities and who are you. Now I am continue with why smart cities are important for the world. Exactly.
Yeah. So smart cities are important for the world for all the reasons that I've stated. I think right now more than ever, there's only one rule, and that's everything gets decentralized. So Elon Musk, you know him, he was just in a hack club a few days ago, which is a global not-for-profit network of school makers and student-led coding clubs where young people build the agency network and the technical talent to think big and do big things. So he said, very bluntly on Twitter, which he does a lot of you follow on Twitter from Turkey, the government is not the solution. The bigger the corporation, like governments are, the weaker the feedback loop for serving customers. So the responsiveness and the product won't be good. But if you have competition, this should always optimize. That's a rule of business, right? Yes. So because the people, the customers are in charge. Yeah. So that competition is now smart cities. So cities, instead of government monopolies, can now compete against each other. And they've always had, but now with technology, we can compete and collaborate, becoming increasingly independent with your own governing framework and your own infrastructure. So experiments on a large scale, like I mentioned, is Sidewalk Labs in Waterfront Toronto. It's a Google project as a sponsor. And then what I do as small cities are on a grassroots level. And it's important to showcase what can be done with a maximum amount of innovation.
Okay, thank you. We know that Canada used this technology in somewhere in Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, or Vancouver. In the past, when did you start to use this technology, and what do you do to develop in Canada?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, well, like I said, I've been involved with it for many years, decades. I was lucky to go to university in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, and bought a computer, learned web development and design. This was way back in the 1990s, and I was in the right place in the right time. And next thing you know, I was building the first Government of Canada websites. I became the webmaster and soon ran the busiest homepage in Canada. And for the past decade, I've been building startups for people to travel easier, live smarter, and invest better. All along, I've attempted to focus on the tools that will make our lives much more easier and efficient and affordable, so that anyone can, get involved in startups or work less standard jobs to take on creative skills as an entrepreneur or solve grand challenges. So that path has guided me to smart cities and intelligent communities, as we call it.
Thank you. With the coronavirus disease, our life's dynamic has changed. For example, now we are at homes and trying to handle our works from, and our important ones changed also.
Yeah.
That's why most of people thinks that everything will never be same in the future. Maybe we will have to change our lifestyles or using technology styles.
Yeah.
What do you think in terms of smart cities? Will their importance be increases or not?
Yeah, it's like I say, and I it is boom time for smart cities. You should, and, everybody should get involved in some way if you can. I write a lot about it on my blog on smartvillage.ca. Last December, before the coronavirus outbreak, the Chinese city of Wuhan actually signed an agreement with a major communication giant to install infrastructure to enhance its security, but also its information services, and convert it into a smart city. The agreement also incorporated mechanism for swift emergency response, which would have helped it in containing the city's epidemic of COVID, but it just got started. Funny enough, right? So
Yeah.
data on these public emergencies can be shared with adjacent cities or countries. Models for managing these crises associated with disease transmission, wildfire, which we have a problem with over here, air pollution, which the world has, flooding, which is everywhere these days, or sewage treatment, of course, for example, can be embedded in a city's ecosystems in advance so they can be controlled more effectively. So this pandemic will shape our kind of global vision of intelligent cities and where people live. Big investments in healthcare, AI, and even surveillance will help curb future pandemics and cushion these blows to the city. So I think with intelligent communities, futurescaping together with critical thinkers such as yourselves, we'll take this data into visualization for all citizens. Um, it will invite us to respond to future scenarios in the next epidemic or the next crisis. This process can reveal possible courses of action, of course, and we can vote in real time. In a perfect situation, we'd be able to really take in this data, vote on real time, not on social media, which is just crazy bunch of words, and not with politicians or corporations either.
Okay, now I will have a question about our country. Maybe
Yeah,
you know that we have not any example of smart city technology in Turkey. What do
yeah.
you think about the development of smart cities technology in Turkey? Because maybe you can think about your country before 10 years, or uh, or something else. What was it? It can be similar process in Turkey. I don't know because we have not this technology. So what is expecting us? What about other countries? They where they are and where we are?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. So in Turkey, I understand that you're fortunate to have a national smart city strategy and an action plan. And that's going on for the next 3 years. So your country gets to come together. You as students working with the government. It's your like urban and environment minister, Karum, that said that every city will implement smart systems from disaster management to smart transportation. So it should save your cities from unnecessary waste of resources, investment, and bring on efficient use of your time. So you're leaders to champion the change in the next 3 years. Most developed countries around the world are engaging in these experiments with companies, governments, and citizens participating. So there was a former president, Thomas Ilves. He's of Estonia, if you've heard of what's going on there. He's been globally recognized as one of the most, with Estonia, as one of the most digitally advanced nations in the world, with a model of digital governance, government e-services, e-voting, e-banking, e-healthcare, focus on education and free public transportation. Among the great achievements during this period, Estonia became the first paperless government in the world, which is amazing. And now they're connecting smart cities across borders into other countries like Finland. So there's plenty of cases, and I think you guys you're on the right track in Turkey.
Thank you. I will also ask about university, but not now. When we think about market or global ranking, where is Canada for smart cities? Is it most popular or not? What is the most developed country?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think you have countries like Estonia, also like Taiwan, that are highly developed. But it's really mainly a race between cities, not necessarily countries themselves. I think a lot of countries have really great government programs that are trying to push it along, but there's a race between these cities. And again, this is all in the spirit of one thing, which is decentralization. Decentralize from the big government and focusing on what cities want. And really, that's what we see now more than ever through COVID, is that it's not just one rule of everybody go in lockdown. Every city is different. In rural Canada here, there's no COVID, but in big cities there are. So there's different treatments to this that needs to happen. So we need this decentralization. At the Intelligent Community Forum, we award top cities. So right now, the top 7 for 2020 include Adelaide, South Australia, Hamilton, Ontario, Hudson, Ohio, Markham, Ontario, Sunshine Coast, Australia, Tallinn, Estonia, and Westerville, Ohio. So there's a bunch of cities that you can glean on through the Intelligent Community Forum, and you can see what they're all doing in different ways.
Thank you. Now, we know that you have an entrepreneurship in your country. Can you describe your entrepreneurship? And I have a special question here. I asked in all my event who has a renewable energy business. How did you find encouraged to create this brand? Because we don't know we don't know have we don't have a most example in the world.
Yeah. So the brand of which brand?
You have a brand in your country for
Yeah.
smart villages, smart cities.
Oh yeah.
How did you encourage? How did you find encourage to create this brand?
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's
So
new job. It's new area of business.
yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Yeah, so like entrepreneurship is the way we take control of our lives in a tough economy, just like now. That's entrepreneurship. Yeah, innovation is the specific instrument of entrepreneurship. It's the act that endows resources with a new capacity to create wealth. So, like my favorite quote is, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." Right. So I just conditioned to helping start brand new movements all the time, being a pioneer, and then creating teams of people that are working together. And now more than ever, everybody can have entrepreneurial qualities. You don't necessarily need to start a company. The brand that I have with Smart Villages is a movement that a lot of small to medium sized cities would like, but also big cities. In Toronto, there's this smart neighborhood, Waterfront Toronto, and Sidewalk Labs. It's a neighborhood, a village within the city. And Toronto is actually a city of 250 neighborhoods. It's the most multicultural city with the most neighborhoods, the most villages. And all these villages are attempting to be decentralized. So that's where the smart village comes about. And again, when we speak about smart villages, we mean intelligent communities and plugged in for a deep collaboration with the citizens, youth, and older adults.
Okay, thank you for my question.
Yeah.
When we think about next 50 years, will the importance of smart cities increase or how this system can change? I know that I asked after Corona, but I was actually curious about how this system can change. How can be evolution of smart cities?
Yeah, wow, next 50 years is going to be exciting. And I hope we can all live forever in 35 to 40 years when we meet the machine and we can experience more. So I believe, smart cities is the most important thing in our lives today, I think. we all need to understand and finalize some of the open data standards to really hyper examine and optimize this framework in our lives. We need to kind of understand not only how to access the data, but how we're going to use it. And everybody's talking about data privacy these days. But with today's technology, we could all be living for free to create as we wish. That's today's technology. But what happens as artificial intelligence, robotics, virtual reality, digital biology, and sensors crash into 3D printing, blockchain, quantum computing, and gigabit around the world? So how will these converging technologies transform today's old industries? What will happen to the way we raise our kids, govern our nations, care for our planet? Next 50 years are going to be transformative. So we have now found kind of clear evidence to believe that the rate at which technology is accelerating, not only the rate, but that rate is accelerating on top of that, right? That on top of this, our brains think linear. It thinks based on what we've experienced in the past, where technology is exponentially growing. So when you do 30 steps forward, based on your linear activity in the past, you think you're going 30 steps. But with exponential technology, that's 1 billion. 1 billion, 30 steps equals 1 billion steps with exponential technology. So things are going to happen really fast. Without smart cities data in knowledge management, we won't be able to cope with this rapid change. You can't really understand that by reading social media or even just taking university courses. We have to get deeply involved and plugged into visualizing how this change is happening. We've just seen it happen, how quickly COVID has changed the world. So, I think in the next 3 years, we'll begin connecting the globe, of course. 3 years, could be 5 years, where 8 billion people around the world are connected to gigabit internet, like one big brain. And that's why we need to have these connected, intelligent communities.
Whoa, it's excited.
Yeah.
How can students invest something themselves about smart cities as a student? If we want to work about smart cities in the future, what should we do? When we are what should we do? What do you advise us? How can we study?
Yeah. So like I was saying, I do these hackathons, and if you haven't experienced them, I encourage you to kind of look them up and see what people around the world are doing. And studying exponential technologies. There are free courses all the time online with artificial intelligence, blockchain, robotics, Internet of Things, extended reality, autonomous vehicle, vertical farms, smart homes, and on, right? So you can co-design your utopia with friends using digital tools. So just go out in the countryside and start something.
Okay.
That's how we learn, right? We're not the 70-20-10 rule. So 70% of your learning comes from doing, actually working. 20% comes with engaging with others, and only 10% is listening to me talking.
Yes, you are right. I understand that first we should have an imagination, then we should dream, and
Yeah,
study about our dreams for
yeah,
the future.
absolutely.
Okay. We saw that some news, like some companies or entrepreneurships, want to cooperate with universities. If we would like to make a project with university, what
Yeah.
should we do? Should we communicate with someone? Should we wait for an offer, or how can we have some steps to make a smart cities project in our country? What is the role of universities?
Yeah, this is again, perfect question. Um, so like if you could encourage with your friends, and again inside of the university or outside, making a call out to individuals to do an intelligent community hackathon, and bring people together. But imagine if your university if you came up with a proposal through a hackathon with a variety of things that you could be doing to create your own smart village or your own smart city, if they could offer you an experimental zone, so a sandbox, an area to play in, where you can actually go and work together inside of the urban landscape, or maybe out in the rural context. You could spend a whole year building and living in it. Doesn't that sound like fun?
Yeah, yeah, it's very fun
Yeah.
and yeah,
You can,
interesting.
and with the technology today, you can use platforms. These offline hackathons have online components where you can have people from around the world contributing to solutions for your little experiment on the ground. So that's called crowdsourcing, and then you can actually experience together in real time what this is. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. It's an experiment. You tear it down, and then you start again. Maybe you start with small homes, and connect them with different technologies, and you do it again and again until you get something right. And that's the key to innovation.
I think it's the best way as a student. You can always have mistakes. They know someone never say no or something else because you're a
Yeah,
student. You are not professional. It's the
that's
best
right.
way.
Yeah,
Uh, how many cities will be smart cities in next 10 years? What is your prediction?
yeah. So, like, all of the cities, communities will be in some sort of way smart. This is inevitable. This path of digitization of everything, but it's also decentralized, right? Where once you used to have one government or a few governments, now we're cutting out these inefficient layers and allowing the citizens to run it themselves with digital platforms. So how long is it to get there is totally up to you. We have the technology today, and it's this year where we have to actually take the time to experiment, because we actually have the time. Everybody's at home. Half of the population is underemployed, and they all want to do something different. Most people don't want to go back to the past. They don't want to live in a society that's existed that got us to these problems today. They want to create something new, and this is the only time, could be the only time in history where we slowed the entire world down. This is the perfect time to go out and start experimenting. Some cities may have some high tech, but some may be low tech. They're still intelligent communities, and they're going to have citizens dive deep into evolving society and consciousness to create a more sustainable future for themselves.
You. Uh, as all we know, there are many crowded metropolises like Istanbul, New York City, etc. Even I saw that there is this technology somewhere in New York City, Washington D.C., Tokyo, or and a lot of more metropolises. How many years will take these cities to be smart? Is it possible or not? I mean, all around these metropolises. I mean, every second, a million people use smartphones. There are too much traffic, etc. What could happen if they would be smart cities? If is it possible or not?
Yeah. So yeah, like I was saying, the it is excuse me, everything is possible. It really does depend on people coming together to use new activities to engage with each other. And New York City, some say, is the smartest city in the world. But it has a leadership that knows how important it is to get people together in unique activity. So, because you have so many smart, wealthy people, of course, wealth does help in getting some more people together, and spend the time to slow down and get into hackathons. In New York City, they do hackathons all the time and come up with new ideas on how to. They have entire departments in innovation, and And so these are important elements for cities to have. And some smaller, medium-sized cities or in developing countries, or people that are just working too hard, they can't change the system because they're too busy working, right? So I think right now is a really good time for all cities to kind of come together, and also understanding as a city, you're in Istanbul, you can pick some other cities to work with that are maybe less fortunate, they're less wealthy. Um, you can, through your university now connect with the different campuses, and you can challenge each other, and that's an important thing to do. Where you see all of these awards that happen around the world. This is the best city. This is the happiest city. This is the most innovative city, and this is the most affordable city. There are just award shows, right? So that cities can say, look, here's what we're good at. Um, but what you can do is set up these challenges so you can challenge each other, saying, hey, I challenge you to come up with a better solution for transportation. And this is what we're going to do. And we're going to try this. And let's get into a challenge platform. There's one that's called Hero X, which is really good. It allows you to compete against to challenge other communities or other universities in coming up with these solutions. And then through the competition format, just like a good business challenges each other, then all these communities can rise up and become intelligent communities.
Thank you. Maybe as IEEE, there are too many countries in. Actually, we joined a hackathon in Egypt last week. I remember. I don't know. We don't have any solution from there because all sessions was Arabic, and this hackathon was opened for all around the world.
Right.
I am so upset about that,
That's
but maybe we can do it more easily
yeah.
because for example, now we are in IEEE backend, but it is possible to connect. Possible to connect easily somewhere from America as IEEE.
Yeah. Awesome. Very good. Yeah. That's let me know how I can support you.
Thank you. We saw that you are working by sustainable development goals.
Yeah.
They are so important to make this world a better place and have sustainability. What is contribution of these goals to organizations?
Yeah. So the SDGs, the Sustainable
Yeah.
Development Goals, yeah, they're the blueprint to achieve a better, more sustainable future for all. They address global challenges we face, including poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace, and justice. So there's 17 goals, and they're all interconnected. And in order for no one to get left behind, it's important that we achieve all of them by 2030. So that's 10 years. And so the Sustainable Development Goals, they're like our global guides. And when we talk about smart cities, it really has everything to do with all of them. But number 11, of course, says cities are hubs for ideas, commerce, culture, science, productivity, social development, and much more. So at their best, cities have enabled people to advance socially and economically, with the number of people living in cities projected to rise to 5 billion by 2030. It's important that efficient urban planning and management practices are in place to deal with the challenges brought by urbanization. So these are great guides that help us along the way, whether you're a company or a group of students or the government or a collection of smart cities. So we use this format creatively in different ways to make sure that every solution that we bring forward addresses like most of the SDGs. It's our guide. Mhm.
Yeah, so I think 2 years before I was a volunteer in Isaac, and we had a project about SDG for quality education because
Yeah.
I know it's better when you are working with SDGs, but I wanted to ask about technology. And it's my
Yeah.
last question. As far as I
Yeah.
review on your site, smart cities in
Yeah.
Canada is generally related with vehicles. I mean traffic and parking and, and transit categories. Why?
Yeah. Yeah. So I like to talk about transportation, and I was a pilot and involved in building the airline industry in Canada.
Oh,
We
I
have,
know.
yeah, we have a huge country in Canada, and we rely heavily on the expensive automobile. We didn't evolve our train system because there's only a few people. There's only 35 million people, and we have such a huge country. There's only one train network, and it's a very old train. So we adopted the automobile from the USA in Detroit, and we became a very car centric country. But it's very expensive. This eats away at our monies every year. So now that the electric vehicle and soon autonomous vehicle is here, this is the biggest disruption since the internet. So it's important to realize, like I said, what makes these intelligent communities. It's moving information, moving people, and moving money around easier. That's what really creates things, that creates innovation, gets things flowing. So with electric autonomous vehicles, this big country, all of a sudden, we're going to move. Like, all of us are on the very, very southern part of the country, and all of a sudden we're going to scatter because we're going to have gigabit wireless connection and electric vehicles that are very affordable to get around. And so when I talk about electric vehicles, it's not just cars, right? It's bikes,
Yeah.
boat, boats, and drones. So flying around with drones, these are all coming online. So I like to talk a lot about what transportation will do to disrupt and get people to live in different places around Canada. And we're already seeing that trend. As I said, young people are leaving the big cities. They're living more in beautiful rural areas. The next big thing I talk a lot about is the disruption of money. Um, so I talk about digital currencies and moving money online. That's my favorite things to talk a lot to work on.
I see.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in Istanbul?
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
Also, there is too many traffic here,
Hmm.
and maybe in the future we can solve this problem when we have a smart city project.
That's right. Yeah, you can do something really small. There's even here in our region, we have a small group of people with a little bit of money, and they have done an application that allows you to track the snowplow. So out here in Canada, we have snow a lot, and so we have these plows. They move the snow, and so now you have an application where you can see where the snowplow is, so you know when you can go out and drive when after a heavy snowfall, and then that will optimize the flow of those snowplows. But that's a group of citizens that came together to build an application so that we can understand what the government is doing better.
I see. It was my last question, but we have some questions from our guests. Uh, First of all, they are really curious about your house. And Rabia Aydın said you told us about smart cities, but you live in a wooden house. Why? She asked.
Uh, because it is this is the fantastic world that we could live in, and so this is one of my residences. I have I'm hiding here for COVID. COVID is actually not that bad out here, but I live in a farm. It's on 11 acres, and this is a chalet. It's like a nice little Swiss chalet, and it's very nice because I have internet here and lots of beautiful country and mountains and lakes and rivers, and then I can take my Tesla in autonomous mode and go to the city 20 minutes away. So I just jump in the car, and 20 minutes later, I'm in a big city, and I can experience the big city, and that's the way to live.
Well, nice. And we have another question from Onurcan Gölge. What do you think about Elon Musk's Hyperloop project? Is it possible to transform all the highway systems to tunnels?
Yeah, that's a great thing. And you know how important Elon Musk is. I think he's getting a lot of, if anybody's on Twitter, he's getting a lot of heat in the past couple of days because he's really trying hard to get his factories up and going again so that they can produce really great sustainable business. It's really important for that business to continue to go, and it's very different around the world. California, COVID isn't as bad as it is in other areas. So Elon Musk, his Hyperloop project is fantastic because he decided very well that he couldn't tackle on his own. So he crowdsourced it. He said, hello world, this is a solution that has been proven to work with scientists and engineers. And he would like the world to try and figure it out. So all of a sudden there are hundreds of companies that are working on these Hyperloop projects, whether it's like coming up with the actual car or a city that says, hey, we want to be the first Hyperloop, like Las Vegas or Los Angeles. And so, yeah, it's possible. And we will have Hyperloop. Where it gets implemented is entirely up to the communities, whether they're the companies that stand up and say, hey, we're going to build a Hyperloop on a certain piece of area, or a government that says, hey, we want to be the first experiment for Hyperloop. It won't transform all of the systems. As you know, Elon is also working on the Boring Company, which is tunneling underground. And that was important because there is an infinite amount of area that you can go underground. You can go many, many stories, where above ground, you can really only just do one or maybe two. And then in the air, that's a whole other world, right? He's already got SpaceX, which is launching and getting traveling going around the space. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of companies that are building flying cars. And so pretty soon we're going to have this very busy transportation network, which is really important for us to kind of get our stuff together on the ground. On the ground, it's already too busy. In Istanbul, too much traffic. And around the world, it's just too crazy. So we have to get more people into these systems like the Hyperloop. We have to get more people underground. We just have to try new ways, because just the way it is not working.
Okay, thank you. And Onurcan Gölge also says, build smart and life simple.
Yeah, that's right. You got it.
Okay, I think we have not any question. Also, my questions is ended. Thank you to be here today with us. It was very successful presentation, and we very learned something about smart cities. Thank you to be with us.
Awesome. Let me know how I can support you anytime, and I'll come visit. I've got lots of friends in Turkey, so I'm looking forward to coming to visit and see how you're doing with your smart cities projects.
Okay, it will be nice because we had an global competition, but we didn't join there because of some banners. But I will always be communicate with you, and I will always text about this. Thank you for your support.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Wait, there is another question I saw now.
Yeah, anybody else has any questions, let me know here.
Yeah. Okay, I am waiting for a question. She says, Rabia again, but I think the smart city is killing too this amazing nature. Can smart cities coexist with nature? Because I think the smart city is killing to this amazing nature. Can
Yeah.
smart cities coexist? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we like again, it's important as we talked about all of this is for all of us to work together. We need youth to work with older adults in companies, in governments. The old way of doing anything was you'd have wealthy people or corporations or governments, coming in and running the city and developing city really quickly. So traditionally, you think it's not a good thing to have the evolution of cities, but that was the old way. Now with smart cities, we can all co-design. We should all co-design what we'd like to have happen. And and when I say smart cities, I mean intelligent communities. And when I mean intelligent communities, it could be living out here in the country where in nature we aren't building a vast amount of buildings that are ruining the land, or we aren't just using technology all over the place just for the sake of using technology. We do have the SDGs in mind, and we use techniques like biomimicry. Have you ever heard of that? So it's actually studying the nature around us to understand how to design our buildings. So this building is made out of wood because the wood was in the front yard here, and so you take the wood and you create a building, and then you try and make it flow inside of nature. It's low impact and sustainable, and so we need to build and think about smart cities or intelligent communities always with the environment in mind. And so this is a big earth, and we can spread around a little bit more to experiment with that. And I encourage you to experiment and have a community that's built with sustainability and with nature first.
Okay. Is there any question, guys?
Yeah.
Uh, I'm waiting only 2 minutes, and I want to ask, how was your quarantine days?
How was what?
Your quarantine days. We are at our houses and we didn't go anywhere because of Corona.
Yeah.
What was your days?
What was my experience?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic living out here, and it's really important. I think I want to ask you how your feeling is through this crisis, because I think for the most part, the people that we're working with are really excited, and I'm really excited too, because for 20 years and more, we've been building these technologies so people can collaborate online. And for a long time, we weren't collaborating and using these tools as well, but now we're forced to using them. Where you used to have to, people would travel around the world to do meetings and events. Now all of the events are online. And so all day I get to meet with thousands of people around the world, and we collaborate using the tools that we've built for some time. So it's been a really, really great experience. And then it's really exciting because I think there's going to be. It's unfortunate that some people around the world have been distressed, and ultimately our health was affected. But it's also helping us become more efficient as humans, and maybe deciding to abandon the business because it wasn't doing well anyway, and trying something new, learn something new while you have the time, and then understand how we can be healthier, more productive, and happier people.
Okay, thanks for your answer. Now we are finishing our events, but
Yeah.
please stay here. Uh, and our guests, thank you to listen us today. Thank you be with here with us. Goodbye.
Yeah. Thanks so much.